Now, I mentioned, he was in the negative at this point in term number one. But when we talk about Trump running for president, he won in part a second term because of immigration. You can see it right here. Look at this. Trump and immigration. He was favored on that issue over Kamala Harris by 14 points. Now he's 17 points underwater. It turns out that the promise of Trump on immigration has not met the reality in the minds of the American public. They like tough immigration talk, but when it comes to the way that Trump presents it and the policies he implements, they don't like it nearly as much. Now, we speak about this 6-point shift away from Trump on immigration, but an even larger shift than this 6-point shift away from Trump on immigration is another issue that, of course, Trump has been running on for years, and it is trade. Trump, of course, wanting to put in interventionist or take those away and put in some protectionist tariffs. And what you see here is that on number 9, Trump's trade and tariffs and approval rating. In term number 1 at this point, look at this. He was 13 points underwater. Look at where he is now. Look at where he is now. He's 25 points underwater, nearly a doubling of his negative net approval rating. This, of course, being a movement of 12. It's funny today. I can't seem to write so well. 12 points away from the president of the United States. He's down there in the China Sea when it comes to his net approval rating on trade and tariffs. Now, it's not just that Trump is underwater on tariffs. He has turned Americans against the very idea of tariffs, because look at this. Look at this. Okay, U.S. on new tariffs on imported goods in November of 2024, just after Trump won term number 2. You know what? He was actually pretty popular. Or his idea was pretty popular on tariffs. 52% of Americans favored new tariffs on imported goods. Just 48% opposed it. That 48% up like a Houston rocket. Look at it now. 64% of Americans oppose new tariffs on imported goods. It turns out that Americans aren't just turning against Trump on tariffs, they're turning against the very idea of tariffs, and that support down 16 points from 52 to 36. Basically an even issue, slightly more in favor, has become a 2-to-1 issue against. Now again, we're talking about overall a 12-point shift away from President Trump on tariffs. But that 12 points, well, take a look here. We got an even bigger one for you. Coming in at number 8, Trump's healthcare net approval rating. Back in 2018, remember, Trump and the Republicans tried that skinny repeal of Obamacare, which, by the way, is quite popular. But Trump on healthcare, he ain't too popular. He was 18 points underwater back in 2018. Look at it now, though. 31 points. We've breached the 30-point barrier. President Trump way down there. We're talking about Titanic-level lows here. We're talking about 31 points underwater. That marks a shift of 13 points away from the president of the United States on healthcare. Now, you might be saying to yourself, healthcare, that hasn't really been popping off too much in Trump's second term, but that shouldn't take you away from the fact that what is important to voters isn't necessarily what is sexy. And this, I think, really just says it. Look at this. The biggest financial concern facing Americans. Look at what is at the top of this list. It ain't gas, which we talk about all the time, right? Filling up your car, that's at 8%. Housing, another big thing with the affordability crisis that Americans think are going on, that's at 14%. Food, which we all need, at 18%. But what's number 1 on this list? It's healthcare. It's healthcare at 22%. So that when you see these giant shifts away from President Trump on healthcare, going from 18 points to 31 points, that 13-point shift, that really matters to a whole heck of a lot of Americans. Now, I will say, all this talk has got me a little bit thirsty here. So this week I'm going for a classic, a nice Coke Zero. Quenches the thirst, but more than that, gives me the energy for the rest of our time together. So we're talking about it number 8, right? We're talking about a 13-point shift away from President Trump on the issue of healthcare. Now, slightly more than 13 points, but rounded to 13 points, coming in at number 7 on your list, Trump's foreign policy net approval rating. Again, slightly more than 13, but rounding to 13, a doubling of Trump's net approval rating in the negative on foreign policy down there in the straight up moves. Look at this. In 2018, Trump wasn't that popular on foreign policy, but again, what became big levels of dislike for President Trump has become historic levels of dislike for President Trump. A doubling in the wrong negative direction down to minus 26 points on the issue of foreign policy. Not too much of a surprise there, because again, what we're talking about Iran, we're talking about Russia. This has become a dominant theme of President Trump's second term. This has become the foreign policy presidency. If the first term was about healthcare, at least the beginning part of it, the first part of his second term has become about foreign policy. And indeed, what's so interesting, of course, is even though Trump was negative in 2018, when we went into Trump's second term, he was positive. He was positive on foreign policy. It was a big reason why he won a second term in office. Remember, Americans very much disliked what Joe Biden was doing when it came to the Middle East crisis, what was going on in Russia, and therefore when Trump and foreign policy in 2024, look at this. Who was more trusted on foreign policy, Harris or Trump? It was Trump by a wide margin. We're talking about a 10-point margin here. And now, of course, we're talking about him being 26 points underwater. We're talking about a drop here of 36 points since the election. A 36-point drop. Again, though, when we're talking about since term number 1, we're talking about a 13-point drop. Now, 13 points at number 7. But again, we got to go even bigger in terms of the drop. We got to go even more down underwater in terms of the drop. I got to get more exercise, swimming down there in the fishes. We got to get there with Jacques Cousteau. So what comes in at number 6? Well, number 6 is something we all have to deal with, right? It's something we all have to deal with. We all have to get out our calculators, right, during tax season. And this is an issue that historically is a strong issue for Republicans, but not any longer with President Trump. Look at this. Trump's net approval rating on taxes. At this point in term number 1, again, he was unpopular at minus 10. But now he's 25 points underwater. And you know what that equals? Well, according to my trusted calculator, you know what that is? That is 25 points underwater. Kind of looks like a little bit of a
It's recording. Trash. A trash is recording. Just give me a second. I have to delete something. Yeah, it's just
But we begin with Anita Vogel live with brand new developments on the conflict with Iran. Anita, good evening.
Yeah, good evening, Trace. It certainly sounds like another large attack against Iran could be imminent, and part of that might be a land blockade. The British Telegraph newspaper is reporting a land blockade is under consideration by President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu to increase economic pressure on the regime after months of attacks have failed to bring them to their knees. The article suggesting the plan could require the U.S. and Israel to petition Iran's neighbors to restrict or close border crossings, which would limit exports and imports to the country. Earlier today, the media pressed President Trump as to how Iran still has enough missiles and military capability to continue to attack U.S. bases and ships in the region, and how he might respond.
They have far fewer than they had 4 or 5 months ago. The manufacturing capacity is almost gone. We'll be hitting them very hard. And at some point, they're going to say, we just can't take it anymore.
And as for that land blockade, Iran shares borders with 7 different countries, including Iraq, Pakistan, and Turkey, which all maintain economic and political cooperation with Tehran. So, Trace, that land blockade could prove to be difficult.
Indeed. Anita, thank you.
Be sure to like and subscribe for all the Fox News latest on YouTube and catch full shows streaming now on Fox 1.
Tonight, talks between Iran and the US have reportedly begun again for a deal that could end the war and reopen the Strait of Hormuz. President Trump announcing last night he'd instructed to hold off any attack. In that, he wrote, the perimeters of a deal has been agreed to. I have agreed to cancel the attack, subject to being able to rapidly make a deal. The president saying he will order American forces to hold off on massive new strikes against Iran.
There's a deal on Hormuz, and then there will be a deal on the nuclear, or you might call it the denuclearization of Iran.
Hours earlier, US embassies signaled a major escalation was close, recommending Americans consider leaving the region. President Trump called it levels of military terror, strength and power not seen since World War II. But there are mixed messages. On Saturday, Iran hit a vessel near the Strait of Hormuz, setting its engine room on fire. And tonight, Iranian officials again insisting the Strait of Hormuz will not return to pre-war conditions. Trump's new ceasefire, the culmination of days of strikes by the US against Iran. A flurry of phone calls, including from Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince to President Trump, and urgent negotiations by countries like Qatar, persuading Trump to again hold off an attack.
The backchannel diplomacy worked really hard to convince President Trump to give a chance for diplomacy again.
What's your prediction of how likely is that this ceasefire sticks?
It's very hard, let's be honest.
But tonight, it's not clear how long President Trump is prepared to wait, writing, get to work, everybody, and get it done.
Kira is with us now from Doha. And Kira, as we heard President Trump say, talks will pick up tomorrow. What are we hearing now from the Iranian side?
Well, Hallie, the Iranian foreign minister seeming to echo President Trump, saying negotiations are on the path to being finalized. But tonight, Hallie, we're just hearing from a monitoring group that looks at the Strait of Hormuz that there has been an explosion near a vessel there. Hallie?
We thank you for watching, and remember, stay updated on breaking news and top stories on the NBC News app or watch live on our YouTube channel.
The Wall Street Journal reported that the president is pressuring you to conduct studies probing the link between vaccines and autism. Is that true?
Did you say probing the link?
I'm just quoting the Wall Street Journal, that the president wants you to go further to probe the link between autism and vaccines.
He certainly does.
Okay. Now, have you talked to him about medical research that have studied this for 25 years and found no link between autism and vaccines? And just this is my question here, because I don't want to litigate that. My question is, why not, because you are HHS secretary now, why not study what could cause autism, which scientists do believe starts with fetal brain development? Why not do some studies on that, whether you're an environmental lawyer, whether there are environmental factors that go into contributing to a predisposed genetic situation?
Well, let me say this first. We're doing all those things, and that's one of the ways that we found Tylenol. There's 73 studies out there that link Tylenol exposure during later pregnancy and during the perinatal period to autism onset. But you are wrong when you say that this issue has been studied. It has been studied, and you're rolling your eyes, Dan. But
I am, because I don't want to have you use our air to say this. There have been more than 40 studies involving 5.6 million people to conclude there is no link between vaccines and autism. This is the head of the Committee of Infectious Diseases for the American Academy of Pediatrics.
And now let me tell you what the Institute of Medicine says, which is the National Academy of Sciences, which is the ultimate arbiter on vaccine safety, and which it does not have an interest in this debate. It says that none of the 8 vaccines that are administered during the first 6 months of life have ever been studied for a relationship to autism. It found 2 studies, one on the DTP vaccine, that showed that it does cause autism, and one on the hepatitis B vaccine that again suggests that it does cause autism. The Institute of Medicine dismissed those 2 studies because they were based on CDC's database. The studies that you're referring to are all from one vaccine, the MMR vaccine, or one ingredient, thimerosal.
So you are actually looking at, you're starting new studies to try to link autism, but you're also
I'm not trying to link autism to anything. I'm trying to find out why is autism.
Are you also trying to find out how it interacts with people's DNA, what's predisposed to have an autistic child? Are you doing both?
Yeah, but Dana, you probably don't understand this because you're not a scientist. But
well, you're not either.
Genes don't cause epidemics.
I understand. Genes,
epidemics. A vulnerability.
A gene provides environmental. That's what I'm asking. Are you studying the environmental?
We're looking at all the different environmental exposures, but your statement, you have been fooled. Your statement that this has been studied is not true. It's categorically not true. It is considered.
It is considered.
Considered by who?
by every scientist who has studied this.
That is not true. I can give you hundreds of scientists who have looked at this.
So on
and
the
say,
one
why
hand,
is
do you understand why
it's the
people aren't
National
getting?
Academy of Sciences. What greater authority?
Do you understand why people are not getting measles vaccines? Because you're hearing you say that it could
You're
cause.
trying to change the subject.
I'm not. It's very much
No, you are.
related.
Show me one of the studies that's been done on the first 8 the vaccines during the first 6 months of life. You will not find them. The National Academy of Sciences.
So if that's
do
the
not
case, then why are
exist.
you telling people to get
The
the measles vaccine?
Because that is one of the vaccines that has been studied.
Okay.
It's the only one that has been studied.
Do you want people to get the MMR vaccine?
Yeah, I said that already.
Okay, so
I know you're flustered now, and it is.
I'm not frustrated at all.
Because
I am
people have not
frustrated.
been honest
The
with
reason
you.
I'm frustrated is because
And
you are the
experts say yes.
HHS. You are the HHS secretary, and you are talking about things that lead to vaccine hesitancy in this country, and it is something that causes problems for people where there is not anything.
Let me ask you something. Do you see your job as ending vaccine hesitancy, or do you see your job as telling the truth to the American people?
I see my job as telling the truth, and the truth is that there is study after study after study. It's one of the most studied things out there in science.
You're repeating
and
it like a parrot. You're repeating it like a parrot. I've actually read the science. Let's you and I come back here and debate the science.
I'm not debating this.
Of course you won't.
No, because I'm not
all
debating.
You know how to do is repeat things that people told you and say, trust the experts. That's what you did during COVID. Now we know that Anthony Fauci, who was the expert, was lying about everything, about masks, about social distancing, about natural immunity, about the transmission from the vaccine, about the source of COVID. He was lying, and you were punishing people for not trusting the experts. And now you're rolling out the experts again to talk about something that you have no personal knowledge of.
Okay, well, guess what? That is my job, to talk to people.
Your job is to
Am I
tell the
allowed to
truth to
talk?
the American
Yes,
public.
yes. And my job is to get as much information as I can. And what we were doing, in COVID, and still, with regard to these vaccines, is getting the best information, the best science that we can, and putting it out there. And sir, what you are doing is causing information to be out there that is not accurate.
Who was lying to you?
The National Academy of Sciences, which you just cited in November, said we support the statement that vaccines do not cause autism. This is the National Academy of Sciences that you just talked about.
Look at the National Academy of Sciences most recent report.
Okay.
And you'll see.
I want to.
Oh, I think I'm gonna go eat, so I'm gonna get off. I'll see you guys. I just wanted to watch this RFK interview. Guys, I'm gonna end the video. Cheers. See you guys.